Welcome to everyone. I think we will start the session today. My name is Mallory. I am an engineer currently based here in Lausanne, in Switzerland. I work at the EPFL Center for Imaging. And so the session today will be about presenting this project called the Imaging Server Kit. So it is a project that I've contributed to along with team members from the Center for Imaging over the past couple of months. And from my point of view, I think it's fair to say it has to be one of the projects that I'm most excited about. And so that's the reason that I wanted to share it with you today. It is a project that concerns people who work with Python mostly, Python for image analysis. So if that's your case, I think you should be interested in this project. So as for today's session, so I was thinking of splitting the session in two parts. The first part will be an introduction. So I'm going to explain to you the concepts behind the imaging server kit. And I would really like to make clear what the problems we address with the server kit and the kind of solutions we propose to these problems. And after that, there will be a practical demonstration. So I think this will be also really fun. And the goal there will be concretely to show you how you can use the imaging server kit in your work. So first of all, let's reflect for a second on the problems that we address with the server kit, and maybe who are the target users. So in my opinion, if you identify as someone who is working with Python and images, and you find yourself developing custom workflows or algorithms in Python, then this might be a tool for you. Also, if you're one of these people, like I am as well, I'm almost certain that one of the things you realize that you need on the day-to-day and pretty much all the time is this idea of having an effective feedback between running computations and then seeing or visualizing the outputs, the results of that computation, just for validation purposes, but just to see visually what the algorithms do and whether they seem to be working or not on for a given use case. So the server kit can actually help to improve the effectiveness with which we do this interactive run visualize loop. The main way in which it can improve that is by giving you a very quick way of creating a user interface in Napari for a given algorithm. So I will show you how this works. Now, so that's one problem. Then there's another recurrent problem that you may be facing, which is the problem of the connection between different programs, including programs that are not based on Python. So here we have a proof of concept that works with QuPath, and we're able to run, or at least to interact with Python-based algorithms in QuPath. And the approach that we take for this is via a web server. So that's the server aspect of the imaging server kit. And I will detail a little bit more how this works later on. And the third kind of situation that's where the imaging server kit can help is situations where you need a connection between different machines. And so typically that can be you like to work on your laptop for doing the analysis, but you have this one algorithm, maybe a big 3D unit or something like that, that just won't work on your laptop. And so this is a situation where you may want to offload the computation of that algorithm onto something like a workstation that has a GPU, maybe other things, cluster nodes, whatever. But there is this aspect. And so this is also approached via the server, the web server aspect of imaging server kit. Then also, concretely, what's in the kit? So we have a Python package that we use that for pretty much everything. And then the QuPath related functionalities are implemented in an extension. So if you want to use the server kit with QuPath, you will have to install the extension. And we have many functionalities that work with Napari as well. And in this case, you would have to install the Napari plugin. So this is what we propose. Then, yeah, I wanted to describe a little bit the general idea behind the server kit, but I think I'll be quite brief on that. But the concept is we start from your Python code, which you can imagine as like a Python function, maybe something that takes an image as input and outputs a segmentation. And we convert it into a representation that we like to call an algorithm, an imaging server kit algorithm. And this object is aware of what the inputs and what the outputs represent. So that can be images, segmentation masks, points, numeric values, a string of text, and many things like this. But being aware of what the inputs and outputs are is the key to making it super easy then to spin up a web server. So for that, we use FastAPI in Python, but we can create a web server with a set of standard API endpoints to run your algorithm. So this is what we use if you want to access your algorithm from QuPath or if you want to run computations remotely. And the other thing that is possible is to create GUIs. So GUIs for the parameters of your algorithm in Napari or in QuPath. Okay, so more concretely, a typical workflow I find myself in a little bit all the time these days is I have some Python code, I'm developing some Python codes, then I can use the imaging server kit to create an algorithm, and from that, Napari layout, user interface layout. And so I would end up with something like this. And let me see if I can make the video a little bit bigger. Yeah, so what you see here is I am developing an algorithm that takes a grayscale image and measures the local orientations of the grade level gradients. So the outputs are vectors that represent the orientation. And so I was able to use the imaging server kit to integrate that algorithm into Napari. And for this, in our plugins, our plugin really works like a basic scaffold. And the thing that depends on your algorithm is the parameters layout. But it's pretty much the same layout all the time for different algorithms. I think if I play the video, you can see this example for the orientation detection. And then I'm switching to a basic threshold. Yeah, so running a threshold, it's not incredibly impressive, but you will be able to do that during the demo, the practical demo after this presentation. So we have that aspect. Then we have the use case of connecting Python with QuPath. So in that case, everything is the same originally, but then what we do is we create a FastAPI server for a given algorithm, and we create a user interface for the parameters of that algorithm, and then via HTTP requests, we let QuPath interact with the Python code through the server. Concretely, this looks like something like this. Let me make that a little bit bigger as well. So you might end up in a situation where you have a little generated user interface in QuPath that shows the parameters of your algorithm. And then you can see here, I'm selecting a region in QuPath, and I just press run. And this way I'm able to run, in this case, it was just for the demonstration. It is a good old stardist detection, and also a blob detector, the blob detector from scikit-image, actually. But all of this via this server concept. So that's what you could expect concretely. Yeah, and then the last important use case is this idea of accessing machines remotely. And so here, what I'm showing you is I've set up a server for a computationally heavy algorithm. In this case, it's stable diffusion, but it could be cell pose 4, it could be segment anything, something like that. And then I'm, with very few lines of code, I'm connecting to a machine remotely from a Jupyter notebook, and then generating an image. And I could use that image later on in my workflow. Okay, so this is meant to be a short presentation, but again, let's hammer in the key takeaways. So 3 main use cases for the imaging server kits. The first one is this idea of the run visualize loop using Napari. So you can go very fast from your Python code to a user interface layout in Napari that you can use interactively. So I will show you how to do that in the practice session as well. Then you have the use case where you want to use an algorithm that you've implemented in Python in QuPath. And so for this, you spin up a web server, and then you access the server from QuPath. And finally, there's the use case of connecting machines and running computations remotely. All right, so that's actually about it for the presentation. Next, there will be the practical session. I will show you how to use the imaging server kits for these use cases. Maybe before concluding the presentation, actually, I want to properly thank, first of all, the contributors to this project. So these are people from the EPFL Center for Imaging. So thanks to them. And I would also like to acknowledge the funding that made this possible. So in this case, it is the PHRT initiative that we have here in Switzerland. And so you're very welcome to stay for the demo session. Otherwise, you will have all of the necessary information on how to use the imaging server kit available also on the project homepage. So definitely check this out as well. All right, so I will escape the presentation now. If you have any questions feel free to ask them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. I suppose you have the right to do that. Yeah, I don't see any questions in the chat right now, so I think I will just carry on. So for the practical session, I have, I believe, shared in the workshop description a link to this repository. So this contains a little bit of boilerplate code. This will be my starting point now for the demo session. If you're very comfortable with Python and you want to follow along, you're welcome to try that. For me, it's not a requirement at all. You can also, it's also perfectly okay to just watch me go through the demonstration. This is also recorded, I believe, so you should be able to also view the recording later on. Maybe I will just drop a link to that in the chat as well, in case you didn't get this. Okay, so for my part, I will just pop in this little terminal here, and I will start a Jupyter Lab session. So you see, I've already cloned this repository in here. So I will just start a Jupyter Lab session in here. Okay, and I will put this over here. Okay, so you can see here, wow, perfect, this is already set up. I have already opened the introduction notebook from the repository. And I have opened next to it this little server.py file. So we will use that to serve our algorithms. And finally, I have opened a little terminal session down here. So maybe the first thing to mention is there's a few links that you should probably be aware of. One is the project homepage, really quickly, but maybe view that as public. Show you some cool demos of usage of the imaging server kits, including, so I don't think I will have time to go through this during the practical session, but something you can do with the server kit is stream data into Napari as well. So here you can see that I've run a little example with YOLO detection. So you can check that out. There is also a documentation page. So the documentation reads very much from start to finish, quite linearly, I suppose. So I believe you should be able to go through this in 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, maybe. And you will be aware of most of the functionalities that we propose with the server kit. Then I left a little form here, the ID box, just for today. Well, not just for today, in fact, but since today. If you have any feedback or if you encounter any problems with the server kit, or if you want to let us know your thoughts about this project in general, feel free to fill that in. I will take a look at it later and get back to you if you want on that. So a little ID box, and yeah, and then okay, if you find any bugs or anything, feel free to file in issues in the original repository. Okay, so first of all, so the imaging server kit is a Python package. I have already installed it in this case. Otherwise, you can install it with pip. And if you are able to do that successfully, then you can import the package. I like to import it as SK with this alias. The reason is so that I can type in things like sk dot, and then in my IDE, I have an autocomplete for all of the functions available. So the version you should be using is at least 0.1.2 or above at the time of recording. The other thing is if you would like to use the Napari related functionalities, you should also install a Napari plugin. And if you have done so, then you can do what I will do just now. So I wanted to show you the we provide a little demo that allows you to test your installation and the basic functionalities of the server kit. So this is a command that you have to run from the terminal. The command is server kit. So I will do that now. Server kit demo, and then Napari for this first demo. So if I run that, you will see that a Napari viewer has appeared. And this is an occasion for me to just go through the GUI layout in a little bit more details than previously. So in the demo, we have already implemented 10 or 12 algorithms for different things. And so the idea here is that if I select an algorithm, for example, the superpixels, the parameters layout updates. So these are the parameters corresponding to the superpixels algorithm. And another thing that updates in the layout is just below the algorithm, we have the samples dropdown. And so the samples represent inputs to the algorithm. So typically sample data, sample images, but that can also be a sample image along with a preset parameters for that sample image. Without going into the details, if I click load here, you can see that we've been able to load Ellen Collins into Napari. And I can directly run my superpixels algorithm on that image. Yeah, and I could change the parameters, increase the number of segments, and rerun it, for example. Okay, and then I could move to another algorithm, maybe the Gaussian filter, a very simple example. And this time I load a different sample. It's the camera image from scikit-image. And the parameters have changed. The difference here is this time when I look at this, if I change the value of the intensity of the blur, so sigma, the result automatically updates in the viewer. So this is a behavior you can set up, and I find this very convenient for many use cases. Okay, so feel free to play around with the different demo algorithms. It's not all necessarily for processing images. I have an example here, this one, the Fibonacci sphere, that just creates a Fibonacci sphere of points, so points evenly distributed on a sphere into Napari. And you can imagine this looks nice, but I would never have gone through the struggle of creating a plugin or anything for this particular algorithm unless it was really, really easy to do. And so, yeah, so that is indeed quite easy to create this with the server kit. So this was all a demo of the Napari layout, but not using a server or any of the server aspects of the library. Now we can also test out a little bit the server concept. And for this, I'm gonna start a different demo by typing in server kit in the terminal, followed by demo, followed by serve this time. Okay, and so now here, this is now a different demo. And you can see in the terminal, we were able to start a UVcorn process and essentially to create a web server from that command. The web server is running by default on your local host port 8000 or 000 8000. So interestingly, if you actually navigate to that URL in a web browser, I will refresh this page. You can see that things are actually happening. We serve a little web page actually at the localhost 8000 address. In this case, you recognize the same example algorithms from the Napari demo. So for example, the superpixels. And if I click on it, I can see some basic information about the parameters for this algorithm, maybe the default values and some basic description of it. But the point is, there is a server running. So, so from there, maybe the first thing I will show you is if I spawn a Napari viewer again, maybe the easiest for this is just to go import Napari and then Napari.viewer. Yeah, so I have a Napari viewer. What I can do here is I can go to plugins and then server kit. And if I click on that, I can now see a layout that is exactly the same as the layout from before, with one difference, which is that I can now set a value for the server URL. So this is where the server is running. In this case, localhost 8000 is fine. And so when I connect to the server by pressing connect, I have now access once again to the demo algorithms. Yes, I don't know, maybe we can take a look at a Sobel filter. And just like before, I can load a sample image. Okay, it's the same as the image before, but okay. And then I can run the algorithm. Okay. Yeah, so but the main difference here is that now the processing is done via the server. So you can see that each time when I press run, I get some output in the server here. So we're accessing the /process route and things like that. So there is a communication. The data is sent to the server, and then the results are retrieved from the server. All of this in that way. So this is working in Napari, but typically this is also something you would want to do in QuPath. So maybe I will show you how this works in QuPath. So it turns out I have over here opened a basic QuPath project with an example image in it. And I have already installed the imaging server kit QuPath extension in here. And so what I can do is I can go to extensions up here, and then imaging server kit, and then connect. Yeah, and here, as expected, I'm being asked for the server URL. So currently, since it is running locally, this is fine. So I will just say OK. And now, just like in Napari, the effect of connecting to the server is we have populated the, in this case, the extensions dropdown with all of the example algorithms from the demo. And so if I select the superpixels here again, you recognize the same parameters as before. And so I could try that out. I could draw a little region on which to run the algorithm here in QuPath, and then press run. And there we go. This is the result of a superpixels algorithm implementation from scikit-image into QuPath. And so again, what happened here is the pixels from that selected region were sent to the server. The server runs the superpixel algorithms and then returns, in this case, annotations that are understandable by QuPath. So yeah, so that's a little bit how it works. Yeah, so by the way, all of the examples from the demo won't work in QuPath. So QuPath has no way of understanding what the result of the Fibonacci sphere, for example, would be like. So it's compatible with segmentation outputs, which can be represented as polygons, or points outputs. That also works. And I believe also bounding boxes that should also work. I think these are the main use cases for QuPath anyway. But yeah, that's where we are at the moment. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to demonstrate, since I am now in QuPath, is the idea of running or of offloading computations to a remote machine. So it turns out I have already set up another server on a different URL, which is in fact a public URL for the duration of the workshop of today, at this address. And this is serving cellpose, actually. So I wanted to use that to show you that it is actually possible to run cellpose in QuPath, but to do the computation on a remote machine. So for this, the first thing I need to do is to go back to the menu and to connect once again. And this time I will type in or just paste the URL to that remote machine, and I will press OK. And the effect of that is that we have updated the list of algorithms available currently. So in this case, we find cellpose. And now I'm clicking on cellpose, and I will do just like before. I will draw a little region of interest. I guess the Cyto model is fine, and I've ticked GPU. So I will just press run. Yeah, and there we go. Our results appear. So what happened there is I've sent these pixels from QuPath to a remote machine somewhere here in somewhere else in the city. It got processed by cellpose, and the results were sent back to me on my laptop. Okay, so this is a little bit how you would go about using the QuPath extension. And now I think we have 25 minutes left, so I think this is fine, but I won't have time to go very, very deep in the details of how to create an algorithm. But I would like to show you how we actually create these algorithms compatible with the server kit. So for this, I was thinking, let's just start with a simple intensity threshold. So that's a simple example, but it's for the demonstration. And so everything starts with a Python function. So if I create a function called demo threshold, and I will try to make this as big as possible out of sympathy for people who have a small screen that you can read easily. Okay, and so a threshold would take in as input an image and a threshold's value. I could give it a default, maybe 100. And then what we would do typically, so the image would be an NumPy array. I would have something like I'm creating a mask, which is the image bigger or equal than the threshold. And I return the mask. Okay, and so we understand what this does. If I wanted to, I could try it out. So I'll just import a few example images. We have the camera, the coins, the astronaut from scikit-image.data. So an image could be the camera. And then I would type something like mask equals my demo threshold with the image as input. And that's pretty much it. And what comes out is a binary mask. okay, we've implemented a threshold algorithm in Python. So now, one thing that is quite cool and you may be surprised about is we have a function in imaging server kit called toNapari. So that function is actually how you go from an algorithm to a GUI in Napari, and it actually returns a viewer. So maybe I will add something like viewer equal, and instead of I just renamed this function demo threshold. So in fact, if I run this simple line of code to Napari with a reference to my function, our viewer has appeared, and you can see that our demo threshold is already here in the layout. And maybe I will do a little viewer add image with our image so we can take a look. If I run this algorithm, in fact, I already have something that looks like a threshold with essentially zero effort. Now, this is cool. Always impresses me. But there's a few things that are not optimal here. You can see one of the things that's not optimal is the threshold is interpreted as an image layer, where it would be more appropriate to have it as a labels layer, so interpreted as a segmentation. And there's a couple of other things that are not optimal for this image. Typically, I would want to avoid setting a threshold value below 0, and currently nothing stops me from doing that. Or to set a value of a threshold above 255, which is the maximum value for this image. And also, I can show you, I would like to have the threshold updates when I change the value in the layout. So let's try to make these improvements. So here's how it works with the imaging server kit. We provide you with a decorator, and the decorator is called algorithm. So what I can do is I can decorate my function as with the sk.algorithm decorator. And this doesn't do much in at a first glance, but actually it converts this function to an object called an algorithm. So in fact, if I try to print this, you see that this demo threshold is now an algorithm class. So yeah, this is a little bit giving you a hint of what happens behind the scenes. What I would like to do from here is I need to annotate the input values so that they are interpreted correctly, and also to annotate the return values of that function so that they are interpreted correctly. So maybe let's start with the input values. So the way I recommend doing this is you can open a set of parentheses inside the decorator, and then you can access something called parameters. And the parameters are, in fact, a dictionary. So you need to create a dictionary. If this is the first time you see this, maybe it seems complicated, but in reality, it's very simple. So I'm opening the parameters dictionary, and then I'm adding key value pairs. The keys are the the names of your parameters, right? So they should match. So image should match the name of your parameter here, variable. And then I have a threshold. So I'm going to annotate the threshold as well. You don't have to annotate all of them, but you can. In this case, we will annotate all of them. And the values that you want to use in this parameters dictionary are essentially types from the imaging server kit library. So I will show you what I mean. There is a type called image here. So the image class here. This is how we want to annotate our image variable because it represents an image. And so you have many of these types, including vectors, string, float, and integer, for example. So for the threshold, I'm going to annotate it as an integer type. And so then these classes here, you can initialize them with a set of parameters. So you can add, for example, a name. I will call this threshold. And for the integer type, you can add a minimum value to 0. In this case, a maximum value, I will set it to 255. Maybe a default value. Okay, and I can remove it from here. And what else did I want? I wanted an autocall behavior on that threshold. So I want that when the threshold changes, the result also gets rerun and updates. So I will set that to true. Okay. This is how you annotate parameters with the imaging server kit. There's actually a few more ways of doing that, but I will let you read the documentation to learn more about this. And the other thing is annotating the return values. So in this case, we are returning a mask. So I also want to annotate that. And here, in a similar way, I need to wrap this into the mask type to represent this as a mask. So basically, this tells imaging server kit that this represents a segmentation. This input is an image, and this is an integer with a minimum of 0, a maximum of 255, and all of that. Okay, let's try it out. If I rerun my Napari viewer, and I add my image, maybe, you can see that now when I run this algorithm, the mask is correctly interpreted as a segmentation. And I have the automatic rerunning of the algorithm when I change the value of the threshold also implemented. Yeah, and then a few more things like I couldn't go below 0 or above or 255. So this is a little bit giving you a sense of how you would go about creating algorithms. Of course, this is a simple threshold, but it would work exactly in the same way if this was your 3D UNet or like your complex segmentation workflow. All right, so we have done all of that. Maybe the last thing I wanted to do here was to check that so one of the things that happens when you add the algorithm decorator is we try to create a model of the parameters behind the scenes. It's done using idontic in Python. And so a consequence of that is that the parameters are also validated at runtime using this. And so for example, I wouldn't be able here to run this demo threshold with a threshold value of -1, for example. So I believe if I run that, it will raise an error. Yeah, you see we get a validation error. And if I scroll down, I can see that the input should be greater or equal to 0. And so that's why I wasn't able to run this. So, so we also have that effect. All right, so then, this shows you a little bit the workflow when working with Napari. Now, if we wanted to serve this threshold algorithm and use it in QuPath, for example, how would we do that? Well, the way we would do that is we need to start a server. And so for this, I will just actually copy what we've just written here. And I will paste it in a Python file called server.py. I think I can erase everything here, Control V. And so here, in the main part of the script, we invoke another function from the server kit called serve, sk.serve. And this will take as input the algorithm we want to serve. So in this case, I will use the demo threshold. Yeah, and that's about all you need to do. So if I now go back to my terminal, I still have the demo running, but I will turn it off. Okay. So now I use Python to run this server.py script. And I have my FastAPI server running. This time, what do we get on localhost port 8000? We get our demo thresholds. We haven't filled in, there's a way to fill in metadata about your algorithm. I'm not sure I'll have time to talk about this today, but we can see that it takes in an image and the threshold, and the server is running. And so I believe at that point we could, for example, go back to our QuPath projects. Yeah, I had just loaded maybe this other image here, which is grayscale. I think this is, we can try our threshold on this. So I will select a region. I will go to connect once again, connect to localhost 8000. Okay. And so what happened here is we now have our demo threshold algorithm available. And so if I run it, there we go. We're able to use our threshold in QuPath. But again, this could be also your very fancy segmentation workflow or something like that. Okay. I see that we have pretty much about 10 minutes left. Let me see what else I had planned to show you today. So the server, yeah, maybe this. So I probably mentioned you can access running servers from QuPath or from Napari. You can also access them from Python. And so this is done via the client class of the imaging server kit. So you see here, I could create a client and point it to localhost 8000. And I believe if I run this, this is telling me that there is one algorithm available on that at that address called the demo threshold. And then from Python, I would be able to run a computation via the client. So the way you would do this is you would call client.run and then specify which algorithm you want to run. You could have more than one, but in this case, there is just one algorithm called demo threshold. And then we want to pass the parameters for the threshold, right? So that would be something like the image, calls image, and the threshold some value. Let's go. And there we go. We were able to, from one Python process, access the other and run the threshold again, but this time from Python. So then there's a little bit of a question as to how we should, in what format we should represent the results that come back from a client like this in Python. Currently, what we get out of these remote procedure calls is a result object that is wrapping around the data, but also includes metadata about the results from the what you run. But if you wanted to access the segmentation mask here, you could access the first so-called layer of the results. So results 0 is, as you can see, a segmentation mask, and it has a data attribute, which is our segmentation mask. So this is also explained in more details in the documentation, but the point is you don't have to use a graphical interface for interacting with these servers. You can also use Python directly. Okay, so I have about 10 minutes left. I think I can show you. So you've seen in the demo that you can add samples to your algorithm. I think maybe, I'm not sure I'll type this in. Maybe we can just take a look at the documentation directly. But if you wonder how this is done, how you can provide samples along with your algorithm, this is done via another input to the algorithm decorator called samples. And here you can fill that in with preset values for the parameters of your algorithm. So I quite like that because I think that the samples are always attached to the object, to the algorithm object. And so you can always, or at least very easily, load a sample and then run your algorithm first on some example data to check that it works correctly or to check that the outputs are what you expect before running it on a new image or on, yeah. So, and the samples you've seen are available in Napari directly as well. Okay, and then there are a few more functionalities. So I mentioned that you can have more than one algorithm combined together. So if you get into the habit of creating these little algorithms with the library, you can then combine them into a single object, and so you will have all of the algorithms available in the dropdown in Napari or in the dropdown in QuPath. Yes, maybe I can really show you quickly this, but if I were to copy paste our demo threshold here, and then we wanted to add another functionality on top of that, maybe we take in a segmentation mask as input, okay. And then we do from skimage.morphology import label. For example, we just label the mask, label of the mask, and then I return a mask wrapped into a mask object, my labeled array. Okay, in this case, I would have two algorithms. Maybe the first is called demo threshold, the other mask post process. And so I should be able to access both of these in Napari. Yes, so the demo threshold. I will just open the coins, for example, just to have an image. So I could first access the threshold and then this mask post-processing on the mask that I just generated and start to have a combination of different algorithms available. Okay, 5 minutes left. I can talk a little bit about going further, what I recommend checking out if you want to dive deeper into the library, and then we will conclude. So there is a concept of live updates. This is what I was very briefly showing you with the YOLO example where I stream data from the camera into Napari. So that is possible. There's a, yeah, I would just read this. I think just read this in your own time. It's based on the yield keyword. So, but the key takeaway here is you can easily have, at least in Napari, the outputs updates in a live manner. So there is that functionality. And then we have some experimental way of running algorithms tile by tile instead of all at once. The motivation there is that it is a little bit limiting if you're working with relatively big images, having to send all of the image at once, and then nothing happens, and then you retrieve the results all at once. So we're exploring a little bit these tiled inference functionality that would work with any algorithm, in fact. And so definitely just check this out later on. Then we also provide a little cookie cutter template that you can use to start a project. For this, you would have to type in the terminal serverkit new, and then the name of your project. And you will have to answer a few questions, basically give a name and a project URL. And that will generate a little boilerplate of a few files, including a Docker file that you can use to reproduce these basic functionalities and get started with the library. Yeah, and finally, we have a gallery of examples. So we have implemented server-kit algorithms for some projects that are a little bit representative of what is being used in the community, or that can have where you can essentially template this and use it with your own project. So each time here, this was all generated from the cookie cutter templates, and you have a little main.py file in which you can see a more serious implementation of one of these algorithms for, again, for well-known projects. So this you can try it out as well, also to get a sense of what is possible to do with the library. All right, I think I'm almost perfectly on time, so I will conclude here. I hope you've enjoyed this practical presentation of the imaging server kit. And if you have any questions about the library or anything really, then feel free to contact me later on. And otherwise, I think I will conclude here. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference, and yeah, have a nice day. I will stop sharing my screen. Oh, there was a question in the chat. In fact, Nicola, I don't know if Nicola is still here. How do you? Wait. So there is first a question about, do you manage tiles processing in QuPath? No, the answer is no, because we're at the very beginning of this. So at the moment, it only works with Napari, but it's definitely a plan to have that functionality available in QuPath. Actually, that's kind of the target, but at the moment we have it only in Python. And the question from Nicola: do you handle higher dimension images as well as very large images? Wow. How is memory handled? So higher dimension images. Wait, I guess you mean probably multi-channels, many channels, these kind of things. So that's possible. That's handled, definitely. In QuPath, if you're thinking of using QuPath, I think the pixels from all channels are sent at the same time. The question of the very large image, yeah, I think that's a little bit the frontier at the moment. So I don't recommend running a workflow directly on a huge image, precisely because of that problem I was mentioning of having to wait for all of the data being processed, and then you basically wait forever. So for very large images, I think at the moment, it's not necessarily the right tool. I would wait for our updates on the tiled processing so that it just becomes a little bit more convenient to work with large images. But that's a little bit the plan. Okay, thanks. I hope, yeah, thanks you very much, and see you around one of these days.